When is the best time to bring up salary?
Something that recruiters tell me that they really love is when people want to get aligned. Because if you're looking for 100K and their budget is 50 to 60K, and you get to the end of 3, 4 rounds of interviews, nobody wants that. It's a waste of time for you and it's a waste of time for them. I always recommend asking them and saying, just before I move forward, I noticed that there wasn't a salary range listed in the job description. Do you know the salary range for this position? Always try to get them to put out the number first because companies know. They know their salary band. They know how much they can pay somebody depending on their experience and skills. And if they say that they don't know or they can't share, yeah, that's just not true. Like they have to get it approved by finance. So I would just gently keep pushing them. If you are in a situation where you know your walkaway number, tell them that. Add 3 to 10% more. I always say to just add a bit more because you should always expect them to meet in the middle.
Hey everyone, I'm Jean Chatsky. Thank you so much for joining me today on HerMoney. I cannot believe that we are almost at the end of 2024. I gotta say, personally, I am looking forward to 2025. I need to get out of this year and into the next one for a whole bunch of mostly personal reasons that I don't need to get into right now because you all have heard about them before. But boy, is now a great time to reflect. It's a really good time to look back on the past 12 months. It's also a good time to set some big, audacious goals, financial and otherwise, for the year to come. And if one of your goals happens to be to land a new job, let me tell you, you got plenty of company. According to a recent survey from Bankrate, nearly half, 48% of Americans say they are likely to search for a new job in the next year. They also say they're going to ask for higher pay and more work flexibility, among other things. But saying you want a new job and actually going through the process of updating your resume, writing a cover letter, not to mention going through your LinkedIn, then submitting to many, many, many jobs, those are two entirely different things. Plus, even if you do all of that, there are no guarantees. There's that awful chance that your resume gets continually passed over or that you make it through one of the many rounds of interviews only to get ghosted. In other words, landing that new job, that new position can be fraught with complications, not to mention a lot of stress. Well, today we got your playbook. We're going to walk through all of those steps, the ones that you really need when it comes to getting that job in 2025. We'll talk about how to actually craft a resume that stands out, how to negotiate for pay the right way, even unpack when it's okay to lie. All right, maybe just shade the truth in an interview. We're doing it with one of social media's leading workplace experts, Erin. You know her as Advice with Erin on TikTok, where she has almost 3 million followers. Wow. Erin, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to be having this conversation because one of the things that we know from looking at our past shows and the shows that do well over and over again is that our listeners really like career advice. You started sharing this sort of advice in 2020. That was a very distinct era in the professional landscape. It was COVID central. It was different from the one that we find ourselves in today. What has changed from 2020 to now?
Oh gosh, so much has changed, and yet so much has stayed the same. One of the biggest changes since 2020 is definitely pay transparency. It is radically different. When I first started giving advice in 2020, the common etiquette, job interview, professional etiquette was still to not talk about pay in a first round interview. Now that it's completely changed, it is very much on both sides' best interest to get aligned on salary in the first round, especially since wages have really varied. In some industries, they've shot way up. In some industries, they've very much stayed stagnant. So we're seeing laws across the country that require jobs to list salary ranges in the job description. So I'd say that's one of the biggest changes that I've seen.
Yeah, that is definitely a huge one. Well, let's dig into it since we're talking about it. When is the best time to bring up salary? Should you do it on that first interview? And if you do it, how do you do it? And when you are presented with salary ranges, they can be substantial, right? They can be $25,000. They can be $30,000. How are you supposed to maneuver within those boundaries?
Yeah, well, first let's talk about when to bring salary up. So, of course, this is a case by case basis and extremely unique to your situation. So, for example, if you're in a state where they have the salary band listed in the job description, okay, you have something to work with. You might not have to bring it up in the first round interview if that band works for you and you guys both know you're on the same page. They know that you saw the band. You can, check in the first round interview, is this the proper band for the role? Okay, that works for me moving forward. But if you're in a state where maybe it's a little bit squishy, or maybe you're starting out in your first entry level job and you're not quite sure, you got to do your research. You got to go to websites like PayScale or Glassdoor and figure out what is your market rate? What should you be looking for as far as salary? What will your cost of living be? Do your budgeting, figure out your taxes, and also, take into account benefits, 401k, matches, and PTO and healthcare. These are all things with monetary value, in my opinion.
So let's say in either case, either there's a band or there's not a band. Maybe there's a band, but you want to make sure, because based on where you are right now, that you could get a salary at the higher end of that band. Do you, in the first interview, bring this up? Do you say, this is how much money I'm looking for? Is there another way to raise the question of salary? Can you just give us like some words?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, something that recruiters tell me that they really love is when people do want to get aligned. Because if you're not aligned, if you're looking for 100K and their budget is 50 to 60K, and you get to the end of 3-4 rounds of interviews and you realize then that you're not aligned, nobody wants that. It's a waste of time for you and it's a waste of time for them. So if you're truly vague on what it is, I always recommend asking them and saying, just before I move forward, I noticed that there wasn't a salary range listed in the job description. I just want to make sure that we're aligned moving forward. Do you know the salary range for this position? Always try to get them to put out the number first, because companies know. They know their salary band. They know how much they can pay somebody within that band, depending on their experience and skills. And if they say that they don't know or they can't share, yeah, that's just not true. Like they have to get it approved by finance. So I would just gently keep pushing them. And then if you are in a situation where you know your walkaway number, tell them that. Add 3 to 10% more. I always say to just add a bit more, because you should always expect them to meet you in the middle.
Fantastic. I think that's a really good place to start, because it's such concrete, tactical advice. And I love that you're asking for the band. That feels like a very non-threatening way to begin a salary conversation. You're not saying, what am I worth? You're saying, what does this job pay? And that seems like a good place to go. Anything else that has specifically changed since 2020? We did a show recently on the whole work from home, not work from home kind of thing. What are you seeing?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, generally across the board, people are willing to take pay cuts in order to have flexible hybrid or even remote work. I'm definitely seeing less people want to be entirely remote. A lot of people want a mixture of both. They know that working from home 100% of the time isn't great for your psyche and for your social life and for your general happiness. So a lot of people do kind of want this hybrid kind of work situation. So that's something that I'm definitely seeing a lot, and people are willing to take pay cuts in order to gain that flexibility. I think something that I've very much seen changed is people reprioritizing and decentering work from their life. People who, of course, have the luxury to do that. And this is, different situations for different people. People who have the opportunity to be financially stable and comfortable, then very much wanting to seek a job that's not their entire life, but just gives them enough money to live the life that they want to live.
All right, let's talk about getting that job in 2025. And let's just sort of go through the things you have to do to get a job. You need a resume. And your advice for resumes is kind of like my advice for investing, which is that boring is often better. What do you mean by a boring resume?
Yeah, so boring is definitely referring to the structure of the resume, like the physical design, not the content. The content should be riveting. Like reading it should be juicy and spicy, and you should have lots of adjectives and verbs and quantify things. It should be really fun to read, but the actual structure of the resume should be incredibly boring. That doesn't mean not well designed. It should be very well designed because the function of a resume is to be quickly scanned. And usually it's quickly scanned by a computer. And computers do not care about colors. They hate photos. They hate weird formatting. I mean, there are lots of awful, what they're called ATS out there, applicant tracking systems. And computers think simple resumes are so great. And so do recruiters who are reading resume after resume all day long. So definitely very interesting in content, but very boring in structure.
What is your preferred structure for a resume?
So most people use chronological resumes, which is when you have like your name at the top and then all of your experience from most recent to less recent, and they have their contact information and their education at the bottom. I actually really love functional resumes. Chronological is really great if the employer really cares about where you've worked and the trajectory of your career, which is great for business consulting and all that. But I think for a lot of folks, a functional resume can be extraordinarily useful. Basically, the difference is a functional resume leads with your skills and not with your experience. So you'd have your name, contact information, or whatever at the top. And then underneath that, you would have, here are the things that I can do. Customer service or video editing or whatever that hard skill is. And you talk about how you can do them, what you've done in the past, and you just really jam pack in what kind of package you are. And this is great for people who have taken career breaks or are moving laterally or switching to a different industry. And then underneath that, you can list out the companies that you've worked for and then your education and your skills. And I personally, I really like functional resumes. I think they can be really helpful for a lot of folks.
When you do a functional resume, and let's say customer service is the thing that you are focusing on, do you put the different customer service roles that you've held with different positions, or do you really just talk about, I ran this department or I ran this program or this project and I can, I boosted the satisfaction by X percent?
Yeah. So, I mean, the way to make an amazing, rock solid, very impressive resume is to take the job description from the job that you're applying for and take the top skills and literally to put those on your resume, if it's truthful, as your skills. You need to basically make your resume look as much like the job description as possible and have the recruiter think, wow, this is a hands down perfect person. We need to at least interview them. So that's basically what you need to do. So you need to determine those skills that you list on your functional resume by what the job description is. And to answer your question, I would keep it more vague, project management, and then list the kinds of projects you've managed and the success of those projects instead of getting more company specific. And that's something else people should stay away from, is using too much like intercompany jargon that can sometimes get you in trouble.
When a computer is reading your resume, there are some things that are sort of hotly debated in terms of what you should and shouldn't do. Bright colors, a summary paragraph, a photo. What do you think of all of those things?
Yeah, again, just keep your resume as simple as possible. I personally recommend Google Docs free resume templates. I think they're really great. They're really simple. I'd stay away from anything trying to do too much. Sometimes people ask me, well, Erin, I'm in a creative field. Your portfolio is where you should showcase your creativity, not your resume. The function of a resume is to be quickly scanned. Recruiters will spend a maximum of 7 seconds skimming it before they either put it in the trash or they put it in the read again pile or whatever it is. So keep it short, keep it concise, and again, try to keep it as similar to the job description as possible. And there are some websites out there where you can like upload to a sample ATS and put in the job description to see if they match. So that's something that you can do. My advice at the end of the day is to not hyperfixate on your resume. Just create a simple resume system where you can easily customize and tailor your resume for each role, and then take that extra energy and put it into networking, because that's actually how you're going to get a job.
So with the resume often comes a cover letter, although I've heard a lot of people saying they aren't even necessary anymore. Where do you come down on this?
A cover letter is never going to hurt you. It's never, ever going to hurt you to write a cover letter. It's only going to help your chances. So yeah, if you want the job, why not just write a cover letter? If there's a space for you to upload a cover letter, with ChatGPT and with AI nowadays, it is so easy to just put in your resume information and say, hey, can you write a draft for a 250-word cover letter? Make it conversational in tone, yet professional, to emphasize my strengths with 3 bullet points. And then ChatGPT will spit that out in 5 seconds. You can go through and customize it and upload it. That takes a maximum of 3 minutes. So I don't really subscribe to like pro or anti cover letter. I'm just like, if you want the job, why wouldn't you just do it? And if recruiters don't read them, then they shouldn't ask for them.
Is a cover letter that's written largely by ChatGPT really going to tell your story?
Yeah. If you enter the right prompt, it absolutely will. If you enter in your resume information, you tell it a little bit about where you're going, you enter in the job description, and you give it the correct prompt, it will absolutely spit out a beautiful cover letter for you. And actually have a YouTube video tutorial on how to do that. But like you said, if you just ask it, write me a cover letter, yeah, it's not going to do a very good job for you.
A recent study from the Financial Times found that about half of current applicants are using ChatGPT. They're using Google Gemini, not just to write cover letters, but to add keywords to their resumes and to complete assessments. What do you think about that?
I think we're in the age of AI no matter what. This is like where we are, and it's going to keep becoming a bigger and bigger part of our life. I think AI is a beautiful tool for efficiency, but if you're using it to mask a skill that you do not have, it's going to catch up with you. Again, AI is a great tool for efficiency. So it can save you a lot of time on writing things like a cover letter or doing a task, but it shouldn't be doing that on your behalf necessarily. You should be going in and editing it and making sure that everything is good. It's about how we use the tools. I don't think necessarily the tools themselves.
One of the issues that I know that people have had, particularly in the last couple of years, is that it's become so easy to apply for jobs. Like the Common App has made it easier to apply for colleges, that jobs are just flooded. Recruiters are flooded. Hiring managers are flooded. And the chances that you get pulled out of that pile, even if you've got a very good resume, have really just fallen precipitously. How do you fight that? Do you need to make a personal connection? Do you need to link in with somebody before you send something to that company? I mean, how do you just not get lost?
Yeah, and this is actually a gripe I have with lots of nefarious AI systems. People are creating these AI generators that will auto submit you to like thousands of jobs, and it's just clogging up the system. It's just problem after the next problem. And yes, recruiters are completely inundated with completely unqualified candidates due to these mass applying, easy apply. I'm very against quick apply. I just think it's the worst thing ever made. You know, getting a new job is throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping something sticks. You have to imagine that you're a recruiter looking at resumes. Are you going to hire the person with the generic resume or the tailored resume? It's easy. And anybody who's ever been in a position to hire knows that. So now we're in an issue where people are mass applying, quick applying, AI applying to all these jobs. And a lot of jobs are fraudulent. We have a lot of ghost jobs right now. So it's just a huge mess. The job boards are a complete disaster. And that's why I really stress networking, because at the end of the day, you can hyperfixate on ATS in your resume and your cover letter and applying to all these jobs and using AI. But at the end of the day, a computer isn't going to hire you. A human being is going to hire you. And if you can go through all that work, or you can just network with somebody from your college and they can give you an in, and that internal referral or recommendation is 1,000 times more powerful than anything you can do on your resume.
What's a ghost job?
Okay, so ghost jobs are fraudulent jobs. So they're jobs that companies post that they have no intention of filling. This became very prevalent post kind of pandemic economic boom, because a lot of companies wanted to save face and they want to make it look like they're doing really well, or they want to gain intel on the market. And there's no way to tell if you're posting a ghost job or not. So they just go on LinkedIn, Indeed, or whatever. They post jobs that they simply aren't really seriously looking to hire for. People apply and they never hear back. So it's a massive problem right now.
And there's no way to discern what's real and what's not real. I mean, the other frustration is I know that a lot of companies have a candidate that they've already picked out, but legally they are bound to post that job, which you have no shot of getting because there's already somebody waiting in line.
Yeah, I mean, research shows that like anywhere from 80% of jobs are secured through the hidden job market, which is through word of mouth. A lot of like entry level positions are, of course, earned through applying online, through resumes. Once you get further along in your career, people do tend to get more jobs through referrals and word of mouth as you network and as you meet more people throughout your career. There's no way to tell if a job is a ghost job. There are red flags if there's been like thousands of applicants, if the posting's been up for more than 30 or 60 days, which now Indeed and ZipRecruiter and all of them are trying to discard job postings that have been up for a long time. Also, if it is a really vague job description and you can tell that it just wasn't written by an HR professional, that's another red flag. But unfortunately, there's no way that you can really tell if a job is fraudulent or not.
Oh, too bad. Okay, Erin, let's say you get the interview, which is a huge relief. You've said that there are some times where it is actually okay to tell a white lie in an interview. One of these is if they ask, are you interviewing at other companies? My inclination, by the way, would be to always say yes. Yes, yes, I'm in demand. Make it sound that way.
Your inclination is correct. It's kind of like being on a first date. You don't lie outright, but you definitely want to put your best foot forward. So you never want to say no. No is the only wrong answer. You just want to say, yes, but transparently, this is my top choice. And if you feel uncomfortable saying that because you feel like it's not true, I encourage you to reframe your mindset because you most likely have put out multiple applications and you're just waiting to hear back. So you are exploring multiple opportunities at different companies. That is what you are doing. You have applied. It's not very likely that this is the only job that you applied for and the only interview that you got.
Another white lie opportunity is answering the question, what is your greatest weakness, too honestly. I think you have to be careful there because you can't say something that comes across as total bullshit like, oh, I work too hard or I'm too dedicated, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just...
Yeah. No, it's like saying I'm a perfectionist. It's like you'll get an immediate eye roll because it's not really a weakness. You're just kind of bragging about yourself being a great worker. They're not really asking, what is your greatest weakness? What they're really asking is, are you self-aware? What are you doing to improve yourself? How do you speak critically of yourself? Are you going to reveal a red flag to me? And a more even layered question that they're asking is, do you know professional etiquette? Have you been in a job interview before? Do you know that people ask this question? That's a way of them telling, are you a real professional? So my trick is to pick a real authentic weakness. So of course, this will be specific to what you do. And then you want to spend about 10% of your answer in naming the weakness, but then 90% talking about how you are working to improve this thing. You want to spin it as, this is something that I'm currently working on improving. So that can be active listening or delegation. Delegation is almost always safe unless you're applying for a manager role, and then you have to be good at delegation. But you want to pick something that is like, oh, okay, yeah, we all kind of struggle with that. It's good to hear that you're working on it and that what you're doing is really working for you.
When they ask why you're leaving your current job, I would think there's a fine line you have to walk. You're leaving for a reason, right? You want to be honest. You don't want to be too honest. You don't want to badmouth that company that you may someday want to go back to or that this person who's interviewing you now may end up working for. What do you say instead?
Yeah, again, you should think of it kind of like a first date. I'll give the advice and people will say, why can't I just tell the truth? Why can't I just be honest? And it's like, well, you want to make yourself look good. So imagine you're on a first date with somebody and you ask the guy, oh, why aren't you in a relationship? And he's like, all the girls I date are awful. And you're just like, that could be true, but I don't know you that well. So this is mainly just making you look bad. It's the same thing in a job interview. They just don't know you that well. So if you start saying, my last boss was so toxic, they were awful, they were micromanaging me, it just reflects poorly on you, even if that's true. You know your last boss. And if they do, and you're talking poorly about them and that's their uncle, yeah, that's going to cause problems as well. So it doesn't do what people think they think it's going to do when you think it's going to bond you and the gossip and getting the tea. Save the tea for after you have the job. Then tell them all about that awful boss. Instead, you just want to keep it positive and forward facing. I really enjoyed my time at this company. I'm proud of what I was able to accomplish. However, this feels like the right time to move on. And you can always hint at something in a professional way. There was a recent shift in the management style at my last company, and I felt that it was the right time to move on. My role had grown stagnant, and I'm looking to pursue a new opportunity like this job here at ABC or whatever it is and bring it back to the present.
What if you were laid off? What if you actually don't have a job at this point? Is that the kind of thing you try to skirt?
A layoff is not your fault. That's the thing. You just have to say, the company, unfortunately, had to lay off a massive portion of my team and I was affected. My role was made redundant. It's really unfortunate because I loved working for that company. I was proud of the projects I worked on. I really enjoyed working with the clients. But ultimately, I'm grateful because now I can explore this opportunity here at whatever company. Again, always just spin it back to the positive and bring it back to the interview.
We talked a little bit about salary before. We didn't really talk about those other benefits that I agree with you have great monetary value: additional vacation days, flexibility, a sign-on bonus. At what point do you move from a salary negotiation to a negotiation on those things?
Again, it depends on you. So for a lot of folks, healthcare, gotta have a good healthcare plan. Maybe you have a chronic illness. It's like very important. Maybe flexible hours are very important because you have young children. PTO is really important because you're younger and you want to go on vacation. There are different things that are valuable to different people. I think the conversation of salary should take place first and foremost because that's the largest portion of your compensation. But it's important to understand other elements of your compensation package. And again, if you notice, I'm talking like a recruiter. Like you have to speak their language because that's how they think. This is a compensation package. The salary, just one part of it. In America, we have a lot of benefits kind of jammed into jobs, hopefully, and you need to explore those. Something that I really recommend is if you get to the end of the salary conversation and they can't meet you where you want them to meet you, that's a great piece of leverage to open up the door to benefits and ask them simply, can you be flexible on any non-salary elements of the compensation package? Throw it to them. Because you never know, different companies have different policies. Some companies might require that every single employee has the exact same 401k match. Other companies might lift that match to incentivize hiring good people. So you just never know. So just open the door to them and say, can you be, flexible on PTO or hours, hybrid work, healthcare plans? I'd love to hear more about the non-salaried items of the compensation package is how I like to phrase it.
These days, interviews can go on round after round after round. At what point should you be not getting frustrated, but getting frustrated? At what point can you start asking for a sign if this is actually going to turn into a job?
Yeah, I always say that you can tell a lot about a company by how they treat you during the interview process. Of course, it's not always true. A lot of companies use external recruiters who don't align with the way that they run their businesses. However, a lot of the time you can tell a lot about a company by how they treat you. I actually recommend nowadays first interview at the end to say, I'd like to prepare, the best for this interview process going forward and put my best foot forward. Do you know a general timeline? Does this company make decisions quickly? Does it make decisions slowly? Should I prepare for 3 interviews? Should I prepare for 7 interviews? You can kind of be funny with it. And any good recruiter will want to tell you. And I'll say, yeah, we actually tend to move really slowly here. So you'll probably be hearing back from us within a month. And then you have your answer. So
we have in our audience some people who are a lot closer to my age than they are to yours. And it's tougher as you get older. It's tougher in general for women, particularly when it comes to negotiating for pay. What's your advice to people as we age about putting our best foot forward?
This is something that I have been getting asked a lot recently. I have been getting a lot of people say, I know your advice is mainly for young folks, but us old folks are really struggling too. It's a hard economy out there. And a lot of ageism. There's a lot of ageism and people do not talk about it enough. And it's honestly very tragic. I think my advice is to lead with skills. And that is not just me flipping something out of thin air. That's based in research. Recruiters this year have been saying that now for the first time, skills have dethroned education. They've dethroned experience. Companies want to know what you know how to do, especially in the age of AI where we're automating and making processes more efficient. They want to know what you can actually bring to the table and physically, tangibly do. So I think it's very important, especially for Gen X or even boomers, people who have been able to rely on their education for a big part of their career to totally make a pivot and to focus on what they actually know how to do. And again, if you're struggling to know what do I actually know how to do, talk to somebody who knows you really well, talk to somebody who you work with, go online, read the job descriptions of jobs you're looking for, read what skills that they are looking for, type into ChatGPT everything you've ever done in your career and have it spit out what skills you know how to do, because a lot of the times in corporate careers, we tend to have softer skills, but those can still be quantifiable and things that you can really lead with in an interview.
Last question, Erin. We get to the end of the process or we're in the middle of the process, but interviews are going well. This is a job I really would like. How do I express my enthusiasm? What's the best way to follow up? What's the best way to follow up without getting on somebody's nerves? Like, how do I toe that line?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. No, people love follow up. It shows enthusiasm. It shows that you really want the job. So you should absolutely follow up after a job interview, anywhere from 12 to 48 hours later. Send a nice email and just say, it was really, really nice to meet you today. I loved learning more about the role. Again, here are 3 reasons why I think I'd be a great fit, 3 bullet points. I look forward to hearing from you and continuing this process, Erin. Like, keep it very, very simple. And at the end of your interview, you should ask about that timeline, like I mentioned earlier. And once it hits that date where they said that you should have heard back and you haven't heard back, that's a great opportunity to send another email. Hi, I know today's the day that you made the decision, or yesterday. To reiterate, I think I'd be a great fit for this role. I'd love to continue our conversation. If you have any updates on the status of your hiring, I'd love to know. And just kind of keep it going. Something to avoid is you don't want to come off desperate, but as long as you keep things really professional and just keep hammering home that you're a great fit. Because it's not that you want the job. They don't really care that a lot of people want the job. Just say, I would crush this job. I would make you look really good to your boss, is basically what you're trying to tell them.
Exactly. For people who are trying to switch it up a little bit in 2025, I know that you've got a quiz that can help them kind of figure out which way to go. Where do we find it, and what are people going to learn?
Absolutely. Not all professionals are created equal. Some of us love a corporate desk job, or some of us love running our own businesses. It's important to figure out what your personality and lifestyle preferences mean for your best career and the career that you'll have the best shot at being happiest in. So what I did is I spent months designing and engineering and researching a 30-question career aptitude quiz. It's 100% free. You can find it at advicewitherin.com/quiz. Again, 30 questions. Grab somebody who knows you well. I find that really helps with self-awareness, and take it with them, along with them. And it spits out one of 6 archetypes that tells you some great careers for you. I have some book recommendations, podcast recommendations, and all that good stuff.
Erin McGough, thank you so much for a great conversation. It's been fun.
Thank you. It's really great to be here.